I used to be that friend. The one who dropped everything for anyone. If someone called at 2 a.m. needing a ride because they got stranded downtown after a night out, I was there. If a coworker waited until the last minute to ask for help on their project while mine piled up on my desk, sure thing, no problem. And if my family guilt tripped me into going to some event I hated, like that awkward cousin wedding where I didn't know anyone, I'd smile, dress up, and sit through 3 hours of small talk I didn't want to have. And you know what? I thought I was being a good person. Thought I was doing the right thing. Thought that's just what kind, reliable people do. Be dependable. Be helpful. Be available whenever someone needs you. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself in that role. It wasn't until I took a step back, really looked around, that I saw it clearly. My life was chaos. Not cute, exciting chaos either. The exhausting, draining kind. I was broke from always covering drinks, ride shares, favors that cost money. I was burnt out from constantly running around trying to keep everyone else happy. And honestly, I was bitter. Quietly, deeply bitter about it all. Because here's the kicker. Everyone else seemed to have their shit together. They had hobbies, routines, free time. They went on trips, read books, posted about self-care. Meanwhile, I was scrambling to finish work because I stayed late helping someone else meet a deadline. Or canceling plans with myself. Because I even canceled on myself to drive someone across town because they forgot they needed a ride. That's when it hit me like a punch to the gut. Nobody was forcing me to live like this. I was choosing it. Every single time I said yes when I meant no. Every time I smiled through exhaustion. Every time I made an excuse for someone else's behavior instead of standing up for myself. It was like waking up from a dream. Suddenly I could see the patterns so clearly. People weren't taking advantage of me because I was weak. They were doing it because I let them. Because I trained them to expect that I'd always be there, always bend, always give. So I decided enough was enough. But it didn't happen overnight. Started small. Like refusing to reply to texts immediately. That sounds minor, but for someone like me, someone who felt obligated to respond within seconds, it was revolutionary. I began letting messages sit. Letting people wait. And guess what? The world didn't end. My phone didn't blow up. No one died. And slowly, I realized I didn't need to carry the weight of instant availability anymore. Then came the harder stuff. Saying no to plans I didn't want to go to. That was brutal. For most of my life, I had convinced myself that declining invitations would make me unlovable, unwanted. But the truth was, I was already feeling invisible and resentful. So I started testing the waters. Hey, we're going out tonight. I appreciate the invite, but I think I'll stay in tonight. And then, nothing. No drama. No backlash. Just silence. Sometimes a follow-up text asking if I was okay, which I answered with a simple, "Just tired, thanks though." And that was it. No confrontation. No fallout. Same with work. When someone tried to dump their project on me last minute, I stopped automatically saying yes. Instead, I'd say, "I've got my hands full with X task, but I can check in tomorrow if you still need help." Sometimes they found someone else. Sometimes they figured it out themselves. And sometimes, they respected the boundary and left me alone. But the hardest part, cutting off conversations with people who only reached out when they needed something. Those calls where they'd start with, "Hey, how are you?" And 5 minutes later it's, "Can you help me with this quick thing?" Those hurt the most. Because those were the moments I realized they weren't calling to connect. They were calling to use me. And once I saw that pattern, I couldn't unsee it. So I stopped making excuses for them. I stopped telling myself things like, they're just busy, or maybe they don't realize how often they ask for favors. No. I started recognizing disrespect for what it was, and I stopped tolerating it. Now, did everyone notice? Definitely not. Most people didn't even blink. Which made me wonder how much of my anxiety and guilt was all in my head. The ones who did notice were usually the ones who were taking advantage anyway. And ironically, they were the ones who gave me the most pushback. Wow, you've gotten kinda selfish lately. That one stung. But I learned to laugh it off. Because I knew the truth. I hadn't become selfish. Became self-aware. And the biggest surprise of all, I suddenly had time again. Time for myself. Time to breathe. Time to explore what I actually wanted out of life. I picked up reading again. Started cooking meals instead of surviving off takeout. Took long walks in the evenings. Reconnected with friends who never asked anything from me except my presence. My real friends didn't leave. They adjusted. They respected the new boundaries. Some even thanked me for inspiring them to do the same. And that's when I realized something huge. Being a doormat doesn't just hurt you. It teaches others to ignore their own worth too. I also noticed something else. When I stopped tolerating garbage stopped showing up. People stopped asking me to do favors I couldn't afford. Invitations to events I hated dried up. Last-minute requests disappeared. It was like magic, but it wasn't magic. It was simply setting standards and sticking to them. And as I built this new version of myself, one that prioritized peace over pleasing, honesty over obligation, I felt lighter. My energy came back. Smiled more. I laughed easier. I slept better. And I stopped dreading every incoming call. Turns out, people don't respect what you tolerate. They respect what you enforce. I wish I could tell you it was easy. It wasn't. There were days I slipped back into old habits. Days I said yes when I meant no just out of muscle memory. Days I felt guilty for wanting space. But I kept reminding myself. Healing isn't linear. Growth is messy. And change takes time. What helped me stay consistent was remembering how I felt before. The exhaustion, the resentment, the emptiness. I never wanted to go back to that version of me. So every time I hesitated to say no, I'd picture that girl. Stressed, broke, smiling through gritted teeth, pretending she was fine while falling apart inside. And that image reminded me why I had to keep going. Today I'm not perfect. I still struggle sometimes. I still worry about disappointing people. But now, I remind myself that disappointment is not abandonment. People might not like my boundaries, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't have them. And the craziest part, I'm happier than I've ever been. Not because my life is perfect, but because I'm finally living it for myself. So if you're sitting there right now, feeling like you're always giving but never getting, hear me, you are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself, even if it makes someone else uncomfortable. Because the moment you stop being everyone's doormat, that's the moment you start becoming your own foundation. And trust me, you're worth stepping up for.